So the footage in this upload is probably the single biggest reason for me wanting to do this project. And it was exactly what I was hoping to find when I was squinting and looking at the Super 8 reels in the light. I saw one of these and it was just astounded. Um, so I don't want to wait any longer. These are going to be in reverse chronological order. That's my dad there climbing out of, I thought it was a F-102 if it was his jet, unless he had gotten a ride in an F4 Phantom. There's some F4 Phantom footage later in one of these clips. So I'm not sure if that was from that day or if that was actually him climbing out of his 102. He never flew the Phantom. He flew the F-86D model that had the Snoopy nose, and then the F-102, and then also the T-33 later on. The way I understand it, the T-33 was like his personal jet back stateside. He worked for the standards and evaluations team, active duty standards and evaluations team that would fly around the country and evaluate guard units. So the active duty people would come and visit the guard units to inspect them and rate their readiness and whatnot. And his personal plane when he was doing that was a T-33. I think this may have been a boat, a ship that they sailed on home from Japan to San Francisco. Because I think towards the end of this clip, or maybe it's another clip, I'm starting to lose track. It shows them sailing under the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm burying the lead a little bit in this clip. The second one that's coming up again in reverse chronological order um, is just astounding. I mean, I really value that footage of him climbing out of the jet. I mean, who else has that kind of footage of their dad from back in the day, back in his fighter pilot days? But the next clip is just incredible. That's right, the President Cleveland. I think that's the ship that they sailed on to get home from overseas. It's probably sometime in the mid 70s. Hopefully, my half siblings will weigh in the comments with some clarification. Now, this is what I saw when I held the Super 8 film up to the light. I saw some of these clips that my dad took. Now, mind you, this was a single seat fighter in close formation. And my dad was filming, presumably with a video camera about the size of a toaster in his little single seat fighter cockpit, flying with one hand, filming with the other. It's not like it was an iPhone or a GoPro suction cup to the canopy. He was doing it with one hand, flying with the other. So I believe that's all of the F-86 flying footage there is, although I haven't been through every minute of every reel yet. But I believe that was it. And then I think in a few minutes it shows that um, F4 Phantom ride that I referenced earlier when it looked like he was in the back seat of an F4 and filmed. But there's his first wife, Marianne, I believe. I don't know what child that would have been. It might have been Norm, the oldest. And I'm not sure where they were, what air base this was. Again, I'm looking to kind of reverse crowdsource a lot of this material and get it to those who would be most interested in seeing it. Most people are familiar with the F-86 Sabre jet with the big round open nose and the swept wing, but they're not as familiar with the F-86D model that my dad flew. It was highly modified frame. I think they only used around half of the original components from the F-86, and they highly modified the jet. It was basically a whole different airplane redesigned, and instead of having the big round open nose, it had the scoop under the front, and they installed the what my dad always called the Snoopy nose, the big black radome in the front where there was a radar located. It was a all weather interceptor, I think he used to call it. And there's some early footage of C-130s. Again, I don't know what air base this is, so see me in the comment section. I'd like to get this footage in the hands of the Air Force Historical Society or the History Channel or whoever, especially some of that air-to-air footage just seems so rare. But also it seems like the History Channel just does a lot of reality television, Pawn Stars, and what's in this storage facility that someone abandoned. But P.S. we pre-stocked it for the show, sort of shows. So I'm not sure who specifically would be interested in this sort of footage, but I thought it was, don't know who that is. Thought it was worth getting digitized and uploaded to YouTube for the world to see. I think that was the same guy that was at the beach with my dad's family. I don't know who that is. Again, see me in the comments section if you know who that was. We can get this footage to their family. Coming up, there's just a very, very, very quick clip, I believe, of my dad climbing into his jet. So you saw him getting out of the 102, and then the next clip that's featured here in a second is of him getting into his F-86. Again, just incredible to be able to have this footage digitized and uploaded all these decades later. My dad talked a lot about how many friends he lost, not even really in combat, but just in these early days of jet aviation, the Century Series jets, where pilots were making the transition from piston props to jets and the learning curve associated with that. It didn't really seem like the science was totally perfected on these jets. They, they seemed to have a lot of issues, and they were dangerous. They weren't easy to fly. I think that's his buddy. I think that's my dad there. Not totally sure. Or maybe that's his buddy. I don't know. It must have been his crew chief, sergeant. You see the radome there. That's what the Snoopy nose was designed for. I think these are the crew chiefs prepping his plane and his wingman's plane. Again, I don't know what air base this was at. Someone will probably be able to tell from those red hats. This is one of the longer clips that I have, but also some of the footage is the most rare. It's just, I found it really great. Really lucky that I found these. That must have been one of my dad's kids, I assume Norm, just based on the date. I'm not sure why it's jumping between flying footage and family footage. I don't know. So there's my dad there. This is the clip I was talking about. It's only like 5 seconds, but it's him climbing into his F-86. There is some more footage from the cockpit here, but I don't think it's quite the close formation that you saw a few minutes ago. And he's back. Single seat, single engine. Those were the jets he flew. That's why when he got out of the Air Force, he had no interest in flying a multi-engine, multi-crew airplane. Not sure he could have. Yeah, he wasn't that type of pilot. He wanted to be relying on himself. Very independent. There's only about a minute left here. Must have been an air show or something. So this is one more clip I'm adding to the end of this upload is a couple things, some more air-to-air footage that he shot from, it looks like the back of an F4 Phantom. He never flew the F4, but he talked about how he had a few hours in it here and there, um, catching rides from sister squadrons or what have you. But the F4 was never his primary plane. I wanted to include this because it just seems like this type of footage is so rare. And coming up, maybe even historical. Uh, my dad hated helicopters, and he talked often about the one and only time he ever flew on a helicopter was when he was basically forced to when they were evacuating Vietnam towards the end of the Vietnam War. And I didn't know he had gotten film of it, but he did. I have film of his helicopter evacuation. We're all familiar with the famous photo from the embassy um, in South Vietnam with the people hanging on the skids of the helicopter. Well, it wasn't. This isn't quite that dramatic, but still historical footage. It's a strange helicopter. I was not familiar with the kind of helicopter it is, but you'll see it at the end when he gets out of the helicopter. He that's it right there. He has a close-up shot of it when towards the end of the video. He never mentioned that he had this footage specifically because he talked a lot about this story about hating helicopters and never flying on a helicopter and only ever having been on a helicopter once in his life because he didn't have a choice. And this is some pretty historical footage of that evacuation. Just a short clip. I'm not sure where they got evacuated to, but that was it.